All right, you never know. It's live TV. Anything can happen. All right, thank you very much at home for joining me this hour. Really, really happy to have you here. I was away last week. I want to thank everybody on Team Jen Psaki for filling in for me while I had the night off. Very kind of everybody. I know it's lots of work, but it's good to be back. We, of course, have eyes tonight on Central Texas, where rescue and recovery operations are now into their fourth night, and where Texas officials say the death toll has now topped more than 100 lives lost in this terrible, terrible flash flooding centering on Kerr County, Texas. This is now officially one of the deadliest floods in the United States in decades. We're going to have eyes there throughout the night again as rescue and recovery efforts head into the fourth night. We're also going to be talking tonight with a meteorologist and journalist who just before these storms was trying to publicly sound the alarm about the Trump administration dismantling important parts of the National Weather Service and the consequences of that for any part of our country facing severe weather. We've got that expert perspective from a very prescient person who was warning about these things just ahead of this disaster. We've got that coming up this hour tonight. We've also got a live report tonight this hour from a lawyer who just made a bombshell discovery about President Donald Trump's ongoing efforts to ship people off to random foreign countries for potentially lifetime imprisonment without trial. The subject of this new revelation, this is something the Trump administration has publicly denied. It is something they may have lied to the courts about. But it has now been discovered, and it has the potential to really mess up the Trump administration's efforts in court in all of these cases that they are already repeatedly losing. Again, a big new surprise revelation that is adverse to the Trump administration, discovered today by a lawyer who has been up against them in court on these really, really outrageous, radical immigration, deportation, sort of international gulag stories. We've got that story for you coming up here tonight. Both of those stories coming up tonight. But I got to tell you, it's been a strange day in the news for a whole bunch of reasons. You might remember before the election in November, there was a little story. We covered it here on the show. You might remember it. It was a statue that mysteriously appeared on the National Mall in Washington. Do you remember this? It was a larger-than-life depiction in bronze of Nancy Pelosi's desk. It had a nameplate on the desk that said Nancy Pelosi. It had a landline phone cast in bronze and bronze Post-it notes and file folders, and also cast in bronze right there on the desk, gigantic. There was a huge poop. A stylized poop in the shape of a swirly poop emoji right there in the middle of the desk. And this weird bronze statue went up on the National Mall just before the election. It was an anonymous artwork. It was titled The Resolute Desk. Nobody knows who put it up. But this statue, this piece of art, it had a very, very formal-looking plaque that made clear what it was about. The plaque said, quote, "This memorial honors the brave men and women who broke into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 to loot, urinate, and defecate throughout those hallowed halls in order to overturn an election. President Trump celebrates these heroes of January 6th as, quote, unbelievable patriots and warriors. This monument stands as a testament to their daring sacrifice and lasting legacy." So that was the plaque on the poop on the desk statue that went up on the National Mall in October just before the election. And then whoever did it, we still don't know, until Cheaps did a follow-up. They said, they gave her a statement to a reporter at DC News Now, quote, "We figured that a monument isn't a real monument until cheap souvenirs are involved. That's why, just like the heroes who invaded the Capitol and landed some sweet laptops, iPads, and a John Lewis photo, we wanted people to have something to take home with them from this monument." So they made brochures celebrating what they called the Trump National January 6th Memorial, again, the poop desk. They also made little foam replicas of the poop, a little swirly poop on a plinth Trump National January 6th memorial, it says on the little plaque there, little foam replicas. They gave them away near that statue on the National Mall under a sign that said, "Free, please take only one." Of course, as soon as Trump got elected, he immediately did pardon all the January 6th convicts, including the guy from Brooklyn who publicly bragged, indeed, about having pooped inside the Capitol. Trump pardoned him. But then there was more. In Philadelphia and in Portland, Oregon, sort of formal-looking statues were put up of Trump looking very portly, wearing a suit. These were statues that purported to honor him for a, quote, lifetime of sexual assault. In New York State, the Donald J. Trump State Park in Yorktown Heights, New York, somebody put up a thing they called the Very Large Donald J. Trump Monument. And the thing was, in fact, gigantic. It's kind of hard to get a sense of the scale of it here. But if you look at those little votive candles that are left on the steps there, you'll get a sense of it. This plinth, this sculptural base, is huge. It's more than 7 feet wide. The whole thing is more than 8 feet tall. But perched on top of all of it, like the whole thing is setting up this teeny, tiny little thing on top of a little tiny mushroom, which is the Very Large Donald J. Trump Monument. That little tiny golden mushroom is a very specific reference to Donald Trump, one that I cannot explain because I am easily embarrassed. Then there was the tiki torch statue, 8-foot-tall hand holding a tiki torch that was put up on Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C. That's a reference to the neo-Nazi and neo-Confederate torch-lit march through Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. There was a plaque on that one as well. It said, quote, "This monument pays tribute to President Donald Trump and the very fine people he boldly stood to defend when they marched in Charlottesville, Virginia." Then after that, there was a few months when we didn't have any new ones. But also about 8 feet tall. It's really big. It shows Trump's signature thumbs up photo pose smashing down onto the crown of the Statue of Liberty. It says in bronze letters across the front, "Dictator approved." And then on the 4 sides of the base, it has 4 quotes from dictators, all praising Trump. There's a quote praising Trump from Vladimir Putin, one from Viktor Orban, one from Jair Bolsonaro, and one from Kim Jong-un. That dictator-approved one went up a few weeks ago in roughly the same place as the Pelosi desk poop statue. The White House was apparently very unhappy about this one. Freedom to display your so-called art, no matter how ugly it is. They actually said that in a White House statement. The people who created that so-called art apparently heard that statement from the White House and thought, challenge accepted. Washingtonian magazine got a comment from one of the anonymous organizers behind that piece of art, who told them that once the White House put out that statement, "You have the freedom to display your so-called art no matter how ugly it is." Once they heard that from the White House as an official White House statement, they decided they would meet the challenge. They would try to create, quote, "the ugliest art that we could think of." And so then they put up a new piece. And it actually has that full White House quote on a plaque. And that plaque is on yet another new sculpture, I think deliberately designed to be as ugly as possible. It's got a like gold spray-painted ivy and a gold spray-painted eagle and a gold spray-painted TV. And in these images, it looks like the TV is off, but in situ, this sculpture actually has the TV playing stuff. The TV apparently is battery powered, and it runs a constant loop of video clips of Trump doing his signature dance where he looks like he's doing something rude with each hand. And these clips that play on a loop on this sculpture, they include a little squib of video of Trump kind of doing that dance at a party with the late millionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. to whom President Donald Trump was, in fact, a friend. Because for our sins, with everything else going on, with Trump today restarting the total economic chaos of random scattershot tariffs on every country in the world other than Russia, with the U.S. government in its infinite wisdom under Donald Trump, getting us back into the measles business, which we had basically eradicated, but now we've got the biggest measles outbreak we've had in more than 30 years, with President Trump saying he was, quote, not notified of the decision to cut off U.S. military support shipments to Ukraine. Said he was not notified and he issued no instruction to do that, raising the obvious question of, okay, then if you as president didn't make that decision, who made that decision? With Trump literally paving the Rose Garden and putting this picture of himself up in the White House in the room with all the portraits of the first ladies. I mean, this is what he put up, right? I mean, in the middle of everything else, large and small, that we are contending with. There really is a Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump subplot in our lives now, in which this footage exists and in which the Trump Justice Department put out a statement today saying, never mind all the things we ever said and hyped and screamed about the late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Turns out it's all nothing and people should stop asking us about it. Headline: Trump administration acknowledges lack of evidence from Epstein documents. After months of promising big revelations, Attorney General Pam Bondi acknowledges a lack of evidence for a host of conspiracy theories, including a, quote, client list. Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi, in fact, not only said there was a Jeffrey Epstein client list that Trump had ordered her to review and release to the American people. She not only said there was a Jeffrey Epstein client list, she said that she had it in her possession on her desk.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
Oh, yes, it was a directive of the president. The Epstein client list. Donald Trump's hand-picked attorney general. New statement today from
I've already told you the Epstein story. Let's just say a friend who knows about something, if you've heard the story, was on the plane with Clinton with the Epstein thing, and he said, I'm out of here, Daddy-O. I told that story quite a few times, so I know a lot about this story. There are a lot of people who know old Jeff. A lot of people. So it's kind of weird, like this client list is about to come out. Everybody got quiet all of a sudden.
I know a lot about this story. A lot. Says the podcaster who Trump named to be deputy director of the FBI. Now today, knock, 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 FBI, what's up with that? Today, according to the FBI and the Justice Department, there is nothing at all to this Jeffrey Epstein story. Please stop talking about it. There will be no further information released. Client list, what client list? We will not be talking about this anymore. There will be no further information. You should stop talking about this, except maybe if it is raised, on the gold spray-painted television sculpture on the National Mall. Maybe you could learn something about it there. But otherwise, now that Donald Trump is the head of the U.S. federal government, we're just, no. Trump administration today announced that on second thought, they are not going to fire 83,000 people who work at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Trump appointed a Republican congressman to run the VA. He called the VA bloated and announced that it would need to be radically reduced in size. He announced that tens of thousands of people were going to be fired, pounded his chest that there'd be more than 80,000 people fired from the VA. He put out a video saying, quote, "We'll be making major changes, so get used to it now." Now, tonight, that's off, apparently. The Washington Post reporting tonight, quote, "The announcement marks a significant reversal for the Trump administration." In recent days, we've also seen the Trump administration reverse course and say it's no longer going to knowingly declare dead people who it knows to be alive. They had done this to more than 6,000 people at the Social Security Administration, with plans to do it potentially to millions of people. Now they have reversed course on that, and they will no longer declare people who are alive to legally be dead. They also reversed course on HIV prevention. Trump had ordered a halt for some reason to HIV prevention efforts all across the country because, yeah, heaven forbid we try to prevent people from getting HIV and AIDS. But they've had to reverse all they've done to try to destroy the